My name is Cassandra, I'm 35, and until 3 months ago, I was a successful real estate agent in Boston with a beautiful home and what I thought was a perfect marriage. I sold everything I owned for what my husband Derek called an amazing promotion in London. Our house, my car, even my grandmother's antique jewelry collection. The night before our flight, I discovered a shocking truth. There was no promotion, no job in London. Just my husband's elaborate plan to empty our accounts and disappear with another woman. Before I tell you how my world collapsed and how I rebuilt it, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to hear how I turned this betrayal into my greatest opportunity. Derek and I met 8 years ago at a charity fundraiser for children's literacy. I was there representing my real estate office, which had sponsored the event. He was charming, confident, and looked absolutely striking in his tailored suit. When he approached me with 2 glasses of champagne and a smile that lit up his entire face, I was immediately drawn to him. We talked all night about our dreams and aspirations. He worked in financial technology and spoke passionately about revolutionizing banking systems. By the end of the evening, I was already imagining a future with him. Our courtship was a whirlwind. Fancy dinners, weekend getaways, and thoughtful gifts. 6 months later, Derek proposed during a sunset sail in Cape Cod. I said yes without hesitation. The wedding was everything I had dreamed of, with my sister Alicia as my maid of honor and all our friends and family celebrating our love. Those first few years of marriage were genuinely happy. We bought a charming colonial home in a suburb of Boston, adopted a golden retriever named Charlie, and spent our weekends renovating our house and hosting dinner parties. My career in real estate was thriving. I had built a reputation for integrity and had a growing list of high-end clients. Derek seemed supportive, attending open houses and congratulating me on big sales. But looking back, there were subtle shifts in his behavior that I dismissed. When I won Realtor of the Year and was invited to speak at the national conference, Derek convinced me to decline, saying we needed to save money for our future. When a broker offered me a partnership opportunity, Derek questioned if I could handle the pressure and suggested I was being manipulated. I compromised my professional growth repeatedly to maintain harmony in our marriage. Derek framed these decisions as what was best for us as a couple, and I believed him. Meanwhile, I supported his career ambitions without question. When he wanted to invest a significant portion of our savings into a financial technology startup with friends, I agreed, trusting his expertise. When he needed to travel for business meetings, sometimes disappearing for days with spotty communication, I never questioned him. My sister Alicia noticed things I couldn't see. During our monthly lunch dates, she would gently probe about Derek's behavior. Does he always check your receipts when you go shopping? Or don't you think it's strange he gets so upset when you make plans without consulting him first? I defended him every time, explaining away his controlling behaviors as signs of his attention to detail or his desire for us to be close. As the years passed, Derek's secrecy around our finances increased. He insisted on managing all our accounts, giving me an allowance rather than equal access. When I questioned this arrangement, he would become defensive, accusing me of not trusting him. Business trips became more frequent and longer in duration. Sometimes he would return home smelling of unfamiliar perfume, which he explained away as hotel soap or having sat next to someone on the plane. I found myself increasingly isolated. My close friendships faded as Derek subtly criticized my friends or created conflicts when I planned to see them. Family gatherings became tense affairs with Derek finding reasons for us to leave early or skip them entirely. Even my relationship with Alicia suffered as Derek claimed she was trying to come between us. Despite all this, I still believed we had the perfect marriage. I told myself that all couples face challenges, that marriage requires sacrifice. I posted smiling photos on social media and spoke glowingly about Derek to anyone who would listen. I convinced myself that the knot of anxiety in my stomach whenever he checked my phone or questioned my whereabouts was just my own insecurity. I was determined to be the perfect wife for the perfect husband in our perfect life. How completely blind I was. It was a Tuesday evening in April when Derek came home with a bottle of expensive champagne and a gleam in his eye that I hadn't seen in years. He loosened his tie, popped the cork, and announced that he'd been offered an incredible position at his company's London headquarters. The role came with a six-figure salary increase, a company car, and a housing allowance in one of London's most prestigious neighborhoods. "This is it, Cass," he said, his eyes bright with excitement. "This is what we've been working toward. A fresh start in a new country. Everything we've ever dreamed of." My initial reaction was shock. He had never mentioned the possibility of an international transfer. I loved our home. My career was finally hitting its stride, and the thought of leaving everything behind was overwhelming. But Derek's enthusiasm was contagious. And soon I found myself caught up in fantasies of weekend trips to Paris and Rome, making new friends in London's cosmopolitan society, and the adventures we would share. The very next day, Derek insisted I give immediate notice at my real estate office. When I suggested working until we had confirmed dates for the move, he became agitated. "They need me there in 6 weeks," he explained. "We have to move quickly. You can't be distracted by work when we have so much to do here." Reluctantly, I resigned from my position. My colleagues were shocked, especially since I was on track for a promotion to senior agent. My broker, Louise, pulled me aside after I announced my departure. "Are you sure about this, Cassandra? You've built something special here. International moves are complicated. Maybe you should wait until everything is finalized?" I dismissed her concerns as jealousy or resistance to losing a top-performing agent. Derek had already convinced me that everyone would try to hold me back from our success. With my job behind me, we focused on selling our home. Derek insisted we use another agent from a different firm rather than one of my colleagues. When I questioned this decision, he explained it would be awkward to have my former coworkers handling our personal business. The agent he selected, Mark, seemed competent but pushed us to list the house well below market value for a quick sale. Derek agreed immediately, overriding my professional objections. Having sold homes in our neighborhood for years, I knew we could get at least $50,000 more if we waited for the right buyer. But Derek was adamant, claiming his new employers needed us in London as soon as possible. Our beautiful home, which we had lovingly renovated over 5 years, sold in just 8 days. The buyers wanted a quick closing, which Derek celebrated as perfect timing, but left us living in a hotel for 3 weeks before our supposed flight to London. Next came the liquidation of our possessions. Derek insisted we sell nearly everything, from furniture to kitchenware. "The company is providing a furnished flat," he explained, "and shipping costs are outrageous. Better to buy new things there that fit with British aesthetics." Each day brought a new round of painful separations from items that held sentimental value. My grandmother's antique secretary desk that I had restored myself. The leather armchair where I spent countless Sunday mornings reading with Charlie snuggled beside me. Photo albums. Holiday decorations. The handmade quilt from my college roommate. Derek pressured me to sell or donate it all. The most difficult moment came when Derek suggested I sell my grandmother's jewelry collection. These pieces had been passed down through generations of women in my family, and I had planned to give them to our children someday. When I refused, Derek became uncharacteristically angry. "What's more important, Cass? Some old jewelry or our future together? We need liquid assets for the move. You can't cling to the past if you want to move forward." After a night of tears and arguments, I reluctantly took the collection to a jeweler Derek recommended. The appraisal seemed low, but Derek assured me it was fair and took the check directly to deposit in our joint account. As our departure date approached, Derek consolidated our separate savings accounts into a single joint account for simplicity during the transition. My retirement fund, the profits from our home sale, and the money from selling our possessions all went into this account, which Derek managed. He explained that he was handling all the financial arrangements for our move, including securing our London apartment and setting up British banking. The final days before our scheduled departure were chaotic. We lived out of suitcases in an impersonal hotel room. Charlie had been sent to stay with Derek's parents, who had promised to care for him until we were settled in London and could send for him. I felt untethered, floating between my old life and the uncertain future ahead. Despite my growing unease, I told myself this displacement was temporary. Soon we would be settled in our London flat, starting an exciting new chapter. I ignored the knot of anxiety that tightened each time Derek evaded my questions about specific details of our new life. Where exactly was our flat located? When would I be able to see photos of it? Had he arranged for my work visa? His answers were always vague, always accompanied by assurances that everything was under control. I wanted so badly to believe him that I silenced my own doubts. The night before our flight, as I packed the last of my personal items into the 2 suitcases Derek had insisted was all we needed, I felt a strange mix of grief and anticipation. I had sold my business, my home, and most of my possessions. I was leaving behind friends, family, and everything familiar. But I was doing it all for love, for our marriage, for our future. Or so I thought. 2 weeks before our scheduled flight to London, I began noticing inconsistencies in Derek's stories. He claimed to have multiple video conferences with his new London team, yet I never heard these calls despite our cramped hotel accommodations. When I asked to meet his new colleagues virtually, he said the time difference made it difficult to arrange. When I suggested staying up late to accommodate London hours, he changed the subject. One afternoon, while Derek was in the shower, his phone chimed with a text message. I had never been the type to snoop, but something about his recent secretiveness propelled me toward his phone. The message preview showed only "can't wait to see you. Arrangements confirmed." The sender was listed as London office. Something about the wording felt personal, intimate even. But I convinced myself I was being paranoid. The following day, I found a receipt in Derek's wallet while looking for a parking validation ticket. It was for a women's jewelry store, showing the purchase of a platinum necklace with a diamond pendant, totaling over $5,000. When I casually mentioned finding the receipt, Derek became flustered before quickly composing himself. It was supposed to be a surprise, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. A gift for you when we arrive in London. Thanks for ruining it. I apologized profusely, feeling guilty for both snooping and spoiling his surprise. Yet no necklace ever appeared, and Derek never mentioned it again. My suspicions grew when I tried to get details about our new home in London. Derek claimed the company had arranged temporary housing in Kensington, but couldn't provide an address because they're finalizing the details. When I asked to see photos or speak with the relocation specialist, Derek became irritated, accusing me of not trusting him. Do you think I'd uproot our entire lives without making sure everything was perfect? He demanded. Why can't you just trust that I'm handling things? Wanting to be supportive, I backed down. But my unease persisted. I decided to reach out to Derek's company directly, using the main contact information from their website rather than the email address Derek had given me for his London coordinator. The response I received was troubling. The HR representative confirmed that the company did have a London office, but seemed confused by my questions about relocation. When I mentioned Derek's name and his new position, there was a long pause before the representative asked me to hold. After several minutes, she returned to say she couldn't discuss personnel matters, but suggested I speak directly with my husband about his employment status. That evening, I tried to casually bring up the call during dinner. I reached out to your company today to ask about shipping some additional items to London later, I said, watching his reaction carefully. They seemed confused about our move. Derek's face darkened. Who exactly did you speak with? He demanded, his voice unnaturally controlled. When I told him, he laughed dismissively. The main HR office wouldn't know about executive transfers. Those are handled by a special division. Please don't call my company again, Cass. You could jeopardize everything if they think there's instability in my personal life. I apologized again, but a seed of serious doubt had been planted. That night, while Derek slept, I tried to access our joint account on my phone. The password had been changed. When I attempted to reset it, I discovered the recovery email had been changed to one I didn't recognize. The next morning, I mentioned the password issue to Derek. He explained it away as a security measure the bank had recommended before international travel and promised to log in later to show me our balance. He never did. My best friend Nicole called that week, concerned that she hadn't heard from me since we sold the house. When I explained about the London move, she asked questions I had been avoiding asking myself. Cassandra, this all seems so sudden. You never mentioned Derek was even being considered for an international position. And selling everything? That doesn't make sense for a corporate relocation. They usually cover shipping costs. It's complicated, I defended. The housing market in London is different. And Derek's company has specific policies. Has he shown you an offer letter? A contract? Anything in writing about this job? Nicole pressed. I realized I had seen nothing official regarding Derek's supposed promotion. When I admitted this to Nicole, she grew more concerned. I don't want to alarm you, but something feels off. Promise me you'll ask to see the paperwork before you get on that plane. After we hung up, I sat in the hotel bathroom with the shower running to mask my conversation as I called Derek's parents. They had always been fond of me, and I hoped they might have additional information about Derek's new position. His mother answered, sounding surprised to hear from me. Cassandra, dear, how are you? Are you all settled in your new place? Confused, I asked what she meant. There was an awkward pause. Well, Derek told us you two had decided to separate and were selling the house. He said you were taking a job in California, and he was considering options in New York. Is that not right? My heart pounded as I struggled to keep my voice steady. There must be some misunderstanding. Derek accepted a position in London. We're flying out tomorrow. He's been telling me this for weeks. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Finally, his mother spoke, her voice tight with concern. Cassandra, Derek was here last weekend. He picked up some of his old childhood memorabilia and said he was making a fresh start. He never mentioned London. The conversation ended awkwardly, with both of us promising to clear things up with Derek. But as I sat on the cold tile floor of the hotel bathroom, pieces began falling into place. The secretive phone calls, the unexplained absences, the insistence on liquidating all our assets, the changed passwords on our financial accounts. That night, Derek announced he had a last-minute dinner meeting with colleagues who were in town from the London office. Don't wait up, he said, kissing me quickly before heading out the door. I might be late. As the door closed behind him, I knew with growing certainty that I needed to find answers before boarding any plane. Tomorrow would either confirm my worst fears or put my suspicions to rest. Either way, I was determined to uncover the truth. The morning of our supposed departure arrived with a knot of dread in my stomach. Derek had returned to the hotel room after midnight, smelling of alcohol and evading my questions about his dinner meeting. He fell into bed and was soon snoring while I lay awake, my mind racing with scenarios, each more devastating than the last. Around 6 a.m., Derek's alarm went off. He showered quickly, dressed in the suit he had set aside for travel, and announced he needed to run a last-minute errand before our afternoon flight. Just some paperwork to sign to finalize everything, he explained vaguely. I'll be back by 10. Be packed and ready to go. As the door closed behind him, I noticed he had left his personal phone on the nightstand. Derek always carried 2 phones, his personal one and a work phone. The work phone never left his side, but in his hurry, he had forgotten his personal device. My hand trembled as I picked it up. I had never gone through Derek's phone before, respecting his privacy as I expected him to respect mine. But now, with our entire lives packed into 4 suitcases and uncertainty clouding our future, I needed to know the truth. The phone was password protected, but I knew Derek well enough to try our anniversary date. The screen unlocked immediately. A wave of nausea hit me as I opened his text messages. The most recent conversation was with someone saved as SL. The messages stretched back over a year, and even the most cursory glance revealed an intimate relationship. Flight confirmed for tomorrow night. Can't wait to start our life together in paradise. Make sure she doesn't suspect anything until you're gone. Be careful, baby. One more day of pretending, and then it's just us forever. My vision blurred with tears as I scrolled through months of messages between Derek and this woman, whose real name I discovered was Sophia Lewis. The evidence of their affair was overwhelming, with explicit messages, photos I couldn't bear to look at, and detailed plans for their future together. But the true horror revealed itself as I continued reading. There was no job in London, no promotion, no corporate relocation. It had all been an elaborate lie designed to convince me to liquidate our assets so Derek could abscond with our money. The messages outlined their plan in sickening detail. Derek had been siphoning money from our accounts for months, setting up a separate bank account in a Caribbean bank. He had convinced me to sell our house and possessions to maximize the cash available. The London move was simply a cover story. While I thought we were flying to London the next day, Derek actually had a one-way ticket to Bali. Sophia would meet him there, and they planned to spend 6 months living in luxury before settling somewhere in Southeast Asia where our money would stretch even further. With shaking hands, I opened Derek's email app. There I found confirmation of his one-way ticket to Bali, departing at 9 p.m. that night, not the London flight he had told me about. I found emails with a real estate agent in Bali about long-term villa rentals. I found receipts for jewelry, designer clothing, and other lavish gifts for Sophia. Ball rose in my throat as I accessed our joint bank account through his phone. The balance that should have contained the proceeds from our house sale, my retirement savings, and the money from selling our possessions now showed less than $5,000. Transaction records showed a series of wire transfers to an offshore account over the past 3 weeks. In a daze, I called Derek's company and asked to speak with his supervisor. After being transferred several times, I finally reached someone who knew Derek. "Mrs. Bailey? I'm sorry, but Derek resigned from his position nearly a month ago. We thought you knew. He declined our offer to extend his contract and said he was pursuing other opportunities." I thanked him mechanically and hung up. My entire world was collapsing around me. 8 years of marriage, the life we had built together, the future I had planned, all of it was based on lies. Derek had never intended to take me to London. He had systematically manipulated me into converting everything I owned into cash, which he had then stolen. And he had done it all while carrying on an affair with another woman. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, surrounded by the suitcases that contained the pitiful remnants of my life, and felt a pain so profound it was physical. My chest constricted, and I struggled to breathe. 8 years of memories replayed in my mind, now tainted by the knowledge of Derek's betrayal. Every anniversary celebration, every "I love you," every promise for our future, all lies. I don't know how long I sat there before I heard the hotel room door open. Derek walked in, looking momentarily startled to see me sitting so still, his phone visible in my hand. "You went through my phone," he said flatly. It wasn't a question. "There is no job in London," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. "There never was." Derek's expression changed, the mask of loving husband falling away to reveal a cold stranger. "I was going to tell you today," he lied smoothly. "Leave you a letter explaining everything. Explaining how you stole our life savings? How you've been cheating on me with Sophia? How you were going to abandon me in a foreign country with no money and no way home." My voice rose with each question, the shock giving way to rage. Derek didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. "It wasn't working between us, Cassandra. It hasn't been for years. Sophia and I are in love. We want a fresh start. With my money," I said. "With everything I worked for." He shrugged, a gesture so callous it took my breath away. "I deserve it after wasting 8 years with you. You were always so focused on your career, so independent. A real wife would have supported me without question. I sold everything I owned for you." I screamed, finally losing control. "I gave up my career. I defended you to everyone who saw through your lies. And I never asked for any of that," he replied coldly. "That was your choice. Just like it's my choice to leave." He moved to the closet and pulled out a suitcase I had never seen before, expensive and new. As he turned to leave, I grabbed his arm. "You can't just walk away from this. From me. We took vows." Derek looked at my hand on his arm, then at my face. The contempt in his eyes was unbearable. "Watch me," he said, pulling away. "Sophia is waiting." And with that, he walked out the door, leaving me alone in an empty hotel room with nothing but 2 suitcases of clothes and the shattered remains of the life I thought I had. As the door closed behind Derek, the full weight of my situation crashed over me. I was alone in a hotel room with no home to return to, no job, and almost no money. Everything I had worked for over the past decade had been stolen by the man who had vowed to love and protect me. The physical pain of betrayal was unlike anything I had experienced before, a crushing pressure in my chest that made it difficult to breathe. I collapsed onto the floor, my body racked with sobs. How could I have been so blind? So trusting? The signs had been there all along, but I had willfully ignored them, making excuses for Derek's behavior and doubting my own instincts. Now I was paying the ultimate price for that trust. When the initial wave of despair subsided enough for me to think clearly, I reached for my phone with trembling hands. There was only one person I could call in this moment of complete vulnerability, my sister Alicia. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright and cheerful. "Cass, I was just thinking about you. Are you at the airport already? I still can't believe you're moving to London tomorrow." "He lied about everything," I whispered, my voice breaking. "There is no job in London. Derek has been having an affair. He stole all our money and just walked out. He's leaving the country tonight with another woman." There was a moment of stunned silence before Alicia's voice, now steely with determination, came through the line. "Where are you right now?" "I'm coming to get you." 3 hours later, Alicia arrived at the hotel, having driven straight from her office in Connecticut. She took one look at my tear-stained face and pulled me into a fierce hug. Without a word, she helped me gather my remaining possessions and checked me out of the hotel that Derek had already paid for through the end of the week, our last days in America, as he had called it. The drive to Alicia's home was mostly silent. I stared out the window, watching the familiar Massachusetts landscape blur past, trying to comprehend how my life had imploded so completely in the span of a few hours. Occasionally, Alicia would reach over and squeeze my hand, a silent reminder that I wasn't entirely alone. That first week at Alicia's house passed in a fog of shock and grief. I barely ate, hardly slept, and spent hours staring blankly at the wall of her guest bedroom. The betrayal felt like a physical wound, a jagged tear through the center of my being that throbbed with each heartbeat. I cycled through emotions, devastating sadness, white-hot rage, paralyzing fear, crushing shame, and back again. Alicia contacted a lawyer friend who specialized in divorce and financial fraud. Jennifer arrived on the 3rd day, sitting patiently with me as I struggled to recount the details of Derek's deception. She took meticulous notes, her expression growing increasingly concerned. "The good news, if we can call it that," Jennifer said after I finished my story, "is that we have clear evidence of financial fraud. The bad news is that Derek has left the country with most of your assets, which complicates recovery." I nodded numbly, barely processing her words. What did it matter now? Everything was gone. The practical realities of my situation began to sink in as the days passed. I had no home to return to. My career in real estate had been abandoned. My savings had been stolen. Even my car had been sold in preparation for the move. The humiliation of explaining what happened to friends and colleagues felt insurmountable. Word spread quickly despite my desire for privacy. Well-meaning messages filled my phone. Expressions of sympathy and outrage that only deepened my shame. How could I admit that I had been so thoroughly deceived? That I had ignored every warning sign? That I had willingly participated in dismantling my own life? The depression that followed was all-consuming. I could barely summon the energy to shower or dress. Alicia would find me in the same position hours after she left for work, still staring at nothing, still trapped in the endless loop of what-ifs and if-onlys. What if I had checked his phone sooner? If only I had listened to Nicole's concerns. What if I had insisted on seeing the job offer in writing? If only I hadn't been so trusting. Derek's betrayal had not only stolen my financial security, but had also shattered my sense of self. If I could be so wrong about the person closest to me, what else was I wrong about? How could I ever trust my judgment again? How could I ever trust anyone again? The lowest point came about a week after Derek left. I had ventured out of the house for the first time, accompanying Alicia to the grocery store. In the checkout line, I overheard two women whispering. One of them had worked with me years earlier, and she was sharing my story with her friend, adding embellishments that painted me as pitifully naive. Can you believe she sold everything because he told her to? Without checking anything? Some people are just asking to be taken advantage of. I abandoned my half-filled cart in the middle of the store and ran to the car, where I sat sobbing until Alicia found me. That night, curled into a ball on the guest bed, I hit rock bottom. The pain seemed unendurable. The future stretched before me as an endless landscape of loneliness and struggle. In that moment of complete despair, I understood why people who suffer such profound betrayals sometimes feel they cannot go on. But something unexpected happened the next morning. I woke up feeling different. Not healed. Not even close, but changed. The paralyzing shock had begun to recede, leaving behind a quiet, smoldering anger. Not just at Derek, but at myself for relinquishing my power so completely. As I stood under the hot spray of the shower, letting water wash away the tears of the previous night, a single clear thought emerged from the chaos of my mind. I would not let Derek's betrayal define the rest of my life. It was a tiny spark of resilience, barely perceptible against the backdrop of my grief. But it was enough to get me dressed that day. Enough to help Alicia prepare dinner, enough to make a list of small, manageable tasks I could accomplish in the coming days. It wasn't a dramatic turning point. No sudden epiphany that instantly restored my shattered self-confidence. Recovery doesn't work that way. But it was a start, the first tentative step on a long road back to myself. I didn't know it then, but that spark of determination would eventually grow into something much more powerful. And though I couldn't see it yet, Derek's betrayal had inadvertently left me with one unexpected asset that would change everything. 2 weeks after Derek's departure, Jennifer called with news that would alter the course of my recovery. I was sitting in Alicia's kitchen, forcing myself to eat a piece of toast when my phone rang. Cassandra. Jennifer's voice held an unusual note of excitement. I've been reviewing the documents you provided, and I noticed something significant. Did you ever sign paperwork transferring your ownership stake in Derek's startup company? I struggled to understand what she was asking. Years earlier, Derek and 2 college friends had launched a financial technology startup. They had each invested initial capital, with Derek using a substantial portion of our savings for his share. I had been concerned about the risk, but Derek had convinced me the potential payoff was worth it. To appease me, he had added my name to his ownership agreement, making me a legal partner in the venture. No, I replied slowly, trying to remember if he had ever asked me to sign anything related to the company. I don't think so. Why? Because according to these documents, you still own 15% of Quantum Financial Technologies, Jennifer explained. And based on my preliminary research, that company is in the final stages of being acquired by a major international bank. The deal is reportedly worth around $80 million. The toast fell from my hand. What are you saying? I'm saying, Jennifer continued, her voice now controlled but triumphant, that in his haste to escape with your liquid assets, Derek forgot about your ownership stake in his company. If this acquisition goes through, your share would be worth approximately $12 million. I sat in stunned silence, unable to process this information. After everything Derek had taken from me, he had overlooked something potentially far more valuable than our savings or the proceeds from our home sale. Jennifer outlined our strategy. First, she would contact the company's legal team to confirm my ownership status and inform them of the pending divorce proceedings. Then, she would place a legal hold on the acquisition proceedings until my stake was properly addressed. Finally, she would use the evidence of Derek's financial fraud to strengthen my position in divorce negotiations. But won't Derek be notified if you contact the company? I asked, suddenly fearful of his reaction when he discovered his oversight. Eventually, yes, Jennifer acknowledged. but we'll have established our legal position before he has time to counter. And remember, he's currently hiding in Bali with stolen funds. That doesn't exactly put him in a strong negotiating position. Over the next few days, everything moved with surprising speed. Jennifer confirmed my ownership stake remained valid and filed the necessary legal notices to protect my interests in the pending acquisition. The company's other partners were understandably concerned about potential delays to their deal, but were even more alarmed to learn of Derek's fraudulent activities, which could potentially trigger investigations that might derail the acquisition entirely. 1 week after Jennifer's initial call, I received a message from an unknown international number. It was Derek. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he demanded, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. "The company called me about some legal hold you've placed on the acquisition. Do you have any idea how much money is at stake?" The old Cassandra would have apologized, would have tried to appease his anger. But that woman was gone, replaced by someone who recognized the manipulative tactics that had controlled her for years. "I know exactly how much is at stake, Derek," I replied calmly. 15% of $80 million. My 15%. "That money is meant for me," he shouted. "I built that company. You had nothing to do with it. You used our joint savings to fund your initial investment," I reminded him. "You added my name to the ownership documents. And then you stole every other penny we had before abandoning me. The way I see it, this is simply recovering what's rightfully mine." Derek's tone changed instantly, shifting from rage to a wheedling charm I once found irresistible. "Cassie, baby, we can work this out." I was under so much stress. I wasn't thinking clearly. "Maybe we can talk about reconciliation. Is Sophia there with you right now?" I asked, interrupting his performance. "While you're offering to reconcile with me?" The silence confirmed my suspicion. I continued, "Here's what's going to happen, Derek. My lawyer will be contacting you with settlement terms. You can agree to them and allow the acquisition to proceed smoothly, or you can fight me and risk losing everything when the buyers walk away due to the legal complications. Your choice." I ended the call before he could respond, my heart pounding, but my resolve stronger than ever. For the first time since discovering his betrayal, I felt a sense of power returning. The negotiations that followed were tense, but ultimately productive. Derek, facing pressure from his business partners and the prospective buyers, had little choice but to agree to our terms. In exchange for lifting the legal hold and signing a clean divorce agreement, I would receive my full 15% stake in the acquisition proceeds, plus additional compensation for the stolen assets. Jennifer advised that we include a non-disclosure agreement preventing Derek from discussing the settlement or making any disparaging remarks about me to mutual acquaintances. "He strikes me as the type who would try to control the narrative," she explained. "This protects your reputation and privacy." The day the acquisition was finalized, I received confirmation that $11.8 million had been deposited into a new account in my name only. After legal fees and taxes, I would still have enough money to rebuild my life several times over. The irony wasn't lost on me. In his elaborate scheme to steal our joint savings of just under $400,000, Derek had overlooked my claim to a sum 30 times larger. That evening, as Alicia and I shared a bottle of champagne to celebrate this unexpected turn of events, my phone chimed with an email notification. It was from Sophia, Derek's mistress. "I thought you should know that Derek has been lying to me too," she wrote. "He told me the company acquisition fell through because of you. I just discovered that's not true. He received his share but has been claiming poverty. I also found messages with another woman. History repeats itself, I guess. I'm going back to the States. I'm sorry for my part in hurting you." I showed the email to Alicia, who raised her glass in a toast. "To karma," she said, "which apparently works faster than the legal system." I clinked my glass against hers, feeling a complex mix of emotions. The money wouldn't erase the pain of Derek's betrayal or instantly restore my shattered self-confidence. But it had given me something precious, time and space to heal on my own terms, without the immediate pressure of financial survival. And perhaps more importantly, it had shown me that despite everything I had lost, I still possessed the strength to stand up for myself when it mattered most. The journey ahead would not be easy. Trust, once broken so thoroughly, does not mend overnight. But for the first time since finding those messages on Derek's phone, I could see a future that held more than just pain and regret. A future that I would build on my own terms, with hard-earned wisdom guiding my way. 6 months after Derek walked out of that hotel room, I stood in the sunlit living room of my new home. A restored Victorian in a quiet neighborhood just outside Boston. The house needed work, much like me, but it had good bones and character. Most importantly, it was mine alone. Purchased with cash from my settlement, a tangible symbol of my independence. The early days after the settlement had been overwhelming. Suddenly having financial security removed the immediate crisis, but left me facing harder questions. Who was I now? What did I want my life to look like? How would I ever trust anyone again? Therapy helped, as did long conversations with Alicia and the small circle of friends who had stood by me without judgment. Gradually, a new purpose began to take shape. Through my own experience, I had learned firsthand about financial abuse and the vulnerability many women face in relationships where they relinquish financial control. I began researching the topic, connecting with advocacy organizations, and speaking with other women who had similar experiences. 3 months after the settlement, I used a portion of my funds to establish a foundation called Financial Autonomy. We offered educational workshops, emergency grants, and legal resources to women seeking financial independence from controlling or abusive situations. The work was challenging but deeply fulfilling, transforming my personal trauma into something that could help others. My career path took an unexpected turn as well. Rather than returning to real estate, I obtained certification as a financial counselor, specializing in helping women navigate major life transitions like divorce, widowhood, or career changes. The skills I had developed selling homes transferred surprisingly well to this new field, particularly the ability to guide clients through emotionally charged decisions with clarity and compassion. Rebuilding my personal life proved more challenging than my professional reinvention. The thought of dating again terrified me. How could I ever trust my judgment of character after being so thoroughly deceived by Derek? But isolation wasn't healthy either, so I forced myself to reconnect socially, accepting invitations from friends and making an effort to form new relationships, even if only platonic ones. It was at a charity fundraiser for domestic violence survivors that I reconnected with Thomas, an old friend from college whom I hadn't seen in years. He was now a pediatric surgeon, divorced himself, with a quiet confidence and gentle humor that put me at ease. We started with coffee meetups that gradually evolved into dinner dates. I moved at a glacial pace, transparent about my trust issues and the trauma I was still processing. Thomas never pushed, never rushed, just consistently showed up with patience and kindness. Healthy love doesn't demand that you dismantle your life, he told me one evening as we walked along the Charles River. It adds to what you've already built. 8 months into our renewed friendship, I finally felt ready to call what we had a relationship. Thomas had proven himself trustworthy not through grand gestures or intense declarations, but through consistent respect for my boundaries and genuine support for my independence. It was a different kind of love than what I had known with Derek, less intoxicating perhaps, but infinitely more sustainable. As my personal and professional life stabilized, I received unexpected news about Derek. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned that his time in Bali had ended abruptly when Sophia left him. He had burned through his portion of the acquisition money with lavish spending and bad investments. Now he was back in the States, living in a small apartment in Chicago and working for a former competitor at a fraction of his previous salary. I felt no satisfaction in his downfall, only a detached sadness for the years we had wasted and the damage we had inflicted on each other. When his email appeared in my inbox 1 year after his departure, I was surprised but not shaken. Cassandra, he wrote, I know I have no right to contact you, but I'm in a difficult situation. Medical bills have depleted my savings, and I'm struggling to keep afloat. I know you received a substantial settlement. Would you consider a loan to help me get back on my feet? I deeply regret my actions and the pain I caused you. Years earlier, I would have responded immediately, either with angry recriminations or, worse, with the financial help he requested. But the woman I had become took 3 days to carefully consider her response. "Derek," I finally wrote back, "I'm sorry to hear you're facing difficulties. You're right that your actions caused me tremendous pain that I'm still healing from. I've dedicated my life to helping women achieve financial independence, particularly those who have experienced financial abuse. I cannot in good conscience send money to the person who taught me how necessary this work is. I wish you healing and growth in your journey forward." I felt no anger as I pressed send. No lingering resentment or desire for revenge. Just the quiet certainty that I was honoring my boundaries and the hard lessons I had learned. Today, 2 years after that devastating morning in the hotel room, my life bears little resemblance to what I had planned with Derek. It is entirely my creation, built thoughtfully from the ashes of my former existence. The foundation helps dozens of women each month reclaim their financial autonomy. My counseling practice is thriving. My relationship with Thomas continues to deepen on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine partnership. The betrayal will always be part of my story, a scar that occasionally aches when the weather of life turns stormy. But it no longer defines me. What defines me are the choices I made in its aftermath, the strength I discovered within myself, and the meaningful life I've built from what initially seemed like irreparable devastation. If you're watching this and facing your own betrayal or loss, please know that the pain you feel today is not permanent, even though it seems all-consuming. Healing isn't linear, and it doesn't mean forgetting or minimizing what happened to you. It means integrating the experience into your life story without allowing it to become your entire story. The greatest revenge against someone who tried to destroy you isn't hatred or retaliation. It's building a life so authentic and fulfilling that when you think of them, if you think of them at all, you feel nothing but a calm acknowledgement of how far you've come. Have you ever experienced betrayal that eventually led to unexpected growth? Share your story in the comments below. Remember that your darkest moments often contain the seeds of your greatest transformation. Please like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more stories of resilience and healing, and share with someone who might need this message today. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you strength and peace on yours.